All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast, where we're diving into some Big Ten team previews. We got USC today. If you're enjoying the program, please make sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support. We're going to send it right over to Marcus with some offensive strengths for the Trojans.
Yeah, I mean, I think this unit has a lot of shooting upside, right? They brought in Rodney Rice, who, one of the best shooters in the portal. 214 attempts last year, shot it at 37% over at Maryland. So great addition there. Chad Baker-Mazara, to me, he obviously has some. Like he'd get ejected or he obviously has his issues on the floor, but really talented player. 38% from three last year, career 40% 3-point shooter on almost 400 attempts. Like he's a really talented shooter. Then you got like Terrence Williams, who didn't play a lot last year. And if you look at his stats, he's actually it's like every other year he alternates good shooting year, bad shooting year. So this year actually projects to be a bad one, but I'm going to buy it and say he'll make some shots as well. And then they also brought in Jacob Kofi, who we talked about in our transfer portal review, who as a freshman at UVA, 41 attempts from three, made 10 of them. I think he has some upside here as a shooter. I'm not going to sit here and say Jacob Kofi's a great shooter, but at 6'10", I think he has some floor spacing upside here. And then, a few other guys to mention, like Ryan Cornish coming in 37% from three, coming in from Dartmouth. I really think that there are, a lot of guys on this roster that can shoot the three ball. And then obviously we'll get to weaknesses here with Cody in a second. They're lacking someone to really run the point, right? I mean, we'll see kind of what they do. It looks like it's going to be like Rodney Rice, maybe. Chad Baker-Mazara probably is going to have the ball a lot as well. But, we'll see. I think the other thing that this team could do well on the offensive end is offensive rebound a little bit, right? I think with Kofi, 9% offensive rebound rate, you've got a guy like Ezra Asar, who has one of the highest motors that I've seen. And I know Cody, we have our concerns with his fit overall here. Right. But he play, there's no doubt he plays super hard. So when he is in there, he's going to play and crash. I'm sure, 9.9% offensive rebound rate. And then Amarian Dickerson, another guy, 9% offensive rebound rate at Robert Morris last year. So I think there are avenues here for this offense to be solid, despite having some primary creation issues. But the defense is really what I expect to be the calling card for USC.
Cody, anything to add here before moving on to weaknesses?
Yeah, I mean, they also have the 7'3" Gabe Dines to get on the glass as well. I mean, he had a 11.6% offensive rebound rate. I'm not sure how much he's going to play. He's probably more of a defensive piece, like rim protector on that side. But I also think it's going to be a pretty good transition offense. I mean, there's a lot of athleticism across this roster, and I think guys like Rice and Chad Baker-Mazara will be better suited to get out and run in transition, just because they're not elite half court creators, and Amari Dickerson and Asar probably wants to get up and down the floor as well if he's going to play in more of a secondary role. So I do think this roster is suited to run a little bit more than it did last year. Last year's roster just lacked some athleticism, and Musselman, slowed it down relative to what he usually does. At Arkansas, he was in the top 60 in adjusted tempo every year. Last year was 114th. So slowed it down a little bit, but still a guy that, likes to generate as many transition chances as possible. But yeah, for the for the weaknesses on this side, like Marcus alluded to it a little bit, but I worry about Musselman offenses that don't have like high level advantage creators or initiators, like particularly it's just lack of a true point guard. And this Musselman offenses are typically very like primary action driven, like pick and roll heavy, isolation heavy. And if Rice is going to play point guard, I don't love their outlook as much as like when you look at the roster, it's like, oh, this team has some guys on this end. They have guys that have contributed to offenses in the past. But when you look at the actual fit in this scheme, I don't really love the outlook on the side of the ball. Like Rice is more perimeter scoring minded, like really struggles to get to the rim and even score at the rim. And obviously we haven't seen any like playmaking flashes really. I think the guy that actually has more playmaking ability is Chad Baker-Mazara. I don't think people talk about his passing ability all that much. It's just a matter of like, can he consistently, get into the lane in isolation? He likes to settle for his jump shot very often, but I mean, he's a guy that has the ability to get to the rim and make a play for someone else. The more the ball's in his hand, I think the more volatile he's going to get. Like he hasn't played like a extremely high usage role throughout his entire career, but I just envision him if he's going to play a 25-26% usage, like his turnover rate's probably going to go up, especially playing around like worse talent than he did at Auburn. I think it's pretty fair to say that, although this isn't bad talent by any means. And I think kind of to cap off some of the weaknesses, I think the front court scoring isn't really phenomenal. And, I don't think this will be like and it's particularly for the shot volume. Like guys like Jacob Kofi, I think settles a little bit for his floater game in the mid range a little bit, and as opposed to like, going at a center and getting to the rim. Like he's a good athlete. Like I think he should utilize that a little bit more. He, just settled for like his floater game and as a roll man. And I would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive. I hate Ezra Sarr's like role as a secondary creator or secondary option in this offense. Like he gets the ball and he's a mid post guy and it's just very ISO heavy. Like that fits like this offense, but when you have you have better pieces on this offense, he's not a guy you're going to run offense through. He gets to the line, but he also doesn't make free throws. So I have pretty big concerns. Like hopefully he uses his motor to get on the glass a little bit more. I agree there.
It's a strong word. Sheesh.
I hate his outlook. I hate his outlook as a secondary guy. I don't think he's a bad player by any means.
Yeah.
I think he was kind of valuable for that Utah team last year, but I think a guy that we haven't mentioned yet is Jaden Brownell coming from Sanford. I think he's like a guy that can bring a different element to this offense as a floor spacer. I mean, he's a guy that averaged 14 points a game at 19 minutes per game at Sanford. I know that team plays a million possessions per game, so it looks a little bit better than it really is, but he's a real floor spacer at either the 4 or the 5. I mean, he's got an interesting skill set, and I think he can actually cut into Asar's minutes a little bit. That could just be a true split, or, they go to Dickerson at the 4 and play a little bit smaller. But yeah, ultimately, I worry about the shot diet. I worry about the advantage creation here, which I think kind of just caps this offense in general.
Marcus, anything to add from a weakness standpoint?
No, I mean, I think he hit the nail on the head. I really worry about like the creators in this offense. Like there's another guy in like Jordan Marsh, who I don't really know what kind of a role he's going to play. Because he's an undersized guard that doesn't really shoot it all that well. But he is someone who I think they could trust to go in and like handle the basketball and not turn it over and get guys shots. I mean, we've seen that in his couple of years, career 24% assist rate, 13% turnover rate. So I think that could be potentially an avenue for them if they were really struggling, but I don't really know the role he's going to play because I think he might hurt their defensive outlook a little bit, even though he does create plays kind of on the ball, which I do. We'll talk about weaknesses here in a minute, but on the defensive side, but yeah.
All right, we're gonna start off with some strengths defensively, and Cody will send it back over to you. Let you run away with it.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, we keep mentioning players. There's just so many new guys on this roster. It's hard to really get to every guy. And like, yeah, Marsh might play some point guard for this team. Like, absolutely. I think that's in the realm of possibility if the the point guard concerns like become like too much for this offense to handle. But for the defensive side, like this is one of the best defensive rosters in the nation on paper. I think it's pretty ridiculous. I think it's very ideal for the Musselman scheme that like emphasizes versatility, switchability, and the headliner for me is Amarian Dickerson. I think coming from Robert Morris, he can guard almost every position, and he's a fantastic playmaker and weak side rim protector. Can play the 3 or the 4, and had an 8.6% block rate at 6'7". Provides elite on ball defense at realistically every position except the 5. I think he can be a little bit overwhelmed by size, but besides that, I think is an unbelievable defender, and just the versatility is going to be great for Musselman. Chad Baker-Mazara has been known as a fantastic on-ball defender throughout his entire career. People like to talk about his antics, but he's an extremely valuable player on both ends of the floor. I think he's arguably a better defender than he is on the offensive end. So I think he's going to be great in this scheme as well. Can guard 1 through 3. Jacob Kofi is a great defensive 5 for this system due to his versatility. Can guard inside and out. Can get switched onto a guard, and I'm not going to be watching it on the TV freaking out that you need to send more guys. You need to shrink the floor. Like he's fine in space. He's going to be completely fine in this scheme. He's not an elite rim protector, but combination of size and lateral movement allow him to defend any type of player. You can play him in drop, but you can also like straight up switch, can high hedge a little bit. I don't know how much high hedging they're going to be doing at USC next year, but yeah, he's a fantastic defender. And then I mentioned Brownell. He's not really a great defender, like watching the tape, but 5.3% block rate. At least you have can potentially play the 5 if you really want to optimize your floor spacing, optimize the offensive end of the floor, and not be completely lost of rim protection. Then obviously this is where Gabe Dines is going to, make his money. 7'4", 14% block rate. He can kind of just play a deep drop coverage. He stands in the lane and, just literally just keeps everyone from the rim. You can't really score over the top of him. You're just going to have to make your dribble jumper in the mid range and kind of live with it. So I think that's where Dines kind of plays his role. I don't know if he plays a ton, but overall, like the effective field goal percentage defense is going to is very strong. But I also think there's potential for this team to force turnovers at a high clip. Like, there's been a few Arkansas defenses that were good in Musselman's tenure, and it's probably going to be a similar scheme. Like you have guys like Baker-Mazara, Kofi, Dickerson, and then Jordan Marsh, who I think can play a role as a playmaker, had like a 4% steal rate, I believe. So it's going to be a solid unit in that regard as well. So yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, like one of the best defensive rosters in the country. Is just about how it all comes together and how quick it comes together.
Mike, is anything to add from a strength point before diving into weaknesses?
No, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on his point about forcing turnovers. I think this is a defense that, like traditionally, right, Musselman defenses force a bunch of turnovers. The last 2 years, we've kind of seen them take a step back. Last 2 years, his last year at Arkansas, 301st in turnover rate defense. And then his first year at USC, 132nd. But the 4 years prior to that, they were all in the top 90, with 3 of those in the top 60. I think this defense is skilled enough, athletic enough to really get back into that like top 60 mark. I think this defense should be really good.
All right. Let's Cody, you have anything else to add weakness wise, or they don't have a lot of them? So
I think there are like just a few pieces that don't really fit all that well when it comes to versatility. Like I hate to rag on the guy, but Ezra Asar doesn't fit like extremely well in the scheme as a guy that's like all that switchable. Like he's pretty stuck at the 4 position. Like I'm not trying to rag on him. I'm not going to say anything more about him. Jaden Brownell as well, like I mentioned, he's not all that switchable. He's more of a rim protector. If this team wants to play a little small ball like they did last year with Rashawn Agee, I think he can kind of slide into that role, but he's just not a great defender. And then guys like Ryan Cornish and EJ Neal, just like I don't think they're guys that play big roles because they're not good defenders. So ultimately, like they're more depth just for the offensive side, and not the greatest defensive rebounding team either. But besides that, I think they're going to be awesome.
Yeah, I've got a few, just like a couple points to make as well on the weakness side. I think the defensive rebounding was kind of like a real thing that stuck out to me. Like Ezra Sarr, not a great defensive rebounder. Kofi, he's all right, 19% defensive rebound rate. And then like Amarian Dickerson, right? He provides a lot of versatility, but he's not fantastic on the defensive glass. Gabe Dines, we'll see what he plays for a role. I don't really know how much he'll play, like you said, which kind of, I guess, worries me a little bit with the rim protection depth because, like you said, Kofi, not a great rim protector. Like Dickerson he's like an 8% block rate guy. Dines, you said 14%, but like I don't know how he really fits on the offensive end, so I think that could limit his role. So like the rim protection depth is a concern for me. And then I think like obviously Chad Baker Mazara are really good on the perimeter. But I think like the primary ball handler defenders, I'm a little bit worried about, kind of similar to how we looked at the offensive end, or at least how I looked at it. Like, there's no real creators. You've got Mazara, who's underrated in that area, but there's just not a ton of depth, I think, to like guard guards at a high level anyway. So I don't know. I think we'll have to see kind of how things shake out. Like you said, I think some of these pieces, like you mentioned, Cornish, Marsh, like I think that they could provide some value on the offensive end at the guard spot, but I'm just a little bit questioning as to how much value they'll provide on the defensive end.
All right, we're going to move right along here. Cody, who's your MVP? Who's your X Factor?
My MVP is Chad Baker Mazara, if he can stay on the floor for every game and not get ejected. But I think he could potentially turn into like the de facto point guard of this team. I think he's the better playmaker compared to Rice, and I think he's a guy that could potentially average 2.7 assists per game last year. He could be a guy that potentially gets to 4, and hopefully he tries to get into the lane a bit more and create some catch and shoot opportunities for some other guys. But yeah, I think he's just a phenomenal two-way player. It's just people have this image in their head of him just being a hothead, and it's kind of skewed people's perceptions into him not being that good of a player. But I would completely disagree. I think he's an awesome player when his head's straight. But my X factor is Jacob Kofi. I think he's gonna have to do a lot at the center position. I doubt that Gabe Dines and him are going to be like a true split, and like there's not a ton of other true centers that you can go to on this roster. And I just think his defensive versatility is going to put like the final pieces together for really an awesome defense.
All right, Marcus, let's hear your MVP and X Factor.
I went with the same guy here. I went with Chad Baker Mazara as my MVP and X Factor. I think he's going to be their best player, for sure in my eyes. And I went with him as the X Factor because without a primary ball handler on the offensive end, I think like more point guard duties are going to fall on him to create offense. And I think like his ability to do that is going to be a huge indicator of where they finish in the Big Ten. So that's why I went there. Plus, I think, like you said, his ability to stay on the floor. I know it's kind of like a running joke, but as long as he's out there, like they should be really good.
Cody, what can we expect from the Trojans? What's the ceiling? What's the floor for them?
Yeah, I had their ceiling as 4th in the league. I think the defense is that good, and there's offensive upside for them to get to that mark. Obviously, there's some good teams at the top, and I don't think they're quite there with those teams. But I think this is a really good roster, and if they put it all together by the end of the year, I think they could be 4th in this league and potentially like a 4 or 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. The floor, I had it like 11th, maybe 12th, and like a fringe, like a bubble team potentially. I just think if the offense doesn't work out, if if the lack of a point guard really comes about for most of the season, I could see them, sliding and being just a super lopsided team. Like, I don't think the defense is really an issue, but if it's an offense that finishes outside like the top 85 or 90 nationally, I could see how they get into bubble talks.
And do you have a bold prediction for this team?
Yeah, my bold prediction is it's defense related. I think they finish in the top 15 in adjusted defense in the country, and this team gets back to the tournament and can potentially win a game or two.
All right, Marcus, what's your ceiling? What's your floor?
My floor, I had them at 10th in the Big Ten. I think like the defense will be good enough. I think like their transition attack can be good enough. I think they have enough shot makers to kind of keep them from slipping too far in the Big Ten. My ceiling, I actually went a little bit higher. I said that they could finish second in the Big Ten. And the reason being, like, if Chad Baker-Mazara can be that guy, I think as like a more of a primary creator, this defense is going to be really good. They have shot makers. They should be pretty good on the offensive glass. Like, I think they have a team that is pretty skilled that could, I think, mess around and finish near the top of this league.
And do you have a bold prediction for this year?
I do. It's also defensive related. I said that that this defense is going to finish in the top 40 in turnover rate defense. So a big jump from last year, up almost 100 spots. But I like this unit quite a bit more.
All right, we're going to wrap up USC here. As always, thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.